Hi, this is Chris with Nightfall Audiobooks, and I have for you this week Beach Party by R.L. Stine from the Point Horror series. If you're not familiar with Point Horror, it's an R.L. Stine story for sure, but it's not connected to Fear Street or Shady Side or the Super Chillers or the cheerleader stuff or anything in any way. It's its own isolated story. I think it's necessary to get out of Shady Side and off of Fear Street for a little while and just enjoy some of R.L. Stine's standalone novels. Some of these are very good. The Hitchhiker, Hit and Run, I Saw You That Night, The Snowman, Beach House is my favorite R.L. Stine point horror novel. Those are all excellent novels, but this one is Beach Party. I have no idea what it's about. It's been in my library since I can remember. I don't remember anything at all, so it'll be like a brand new experience for me. As always, I have high hopes for this story. The cover looks great with the tattered yellow and red umbrella and the broken sunglasses sitting on the beach towel. This looks like a lot of fun. I don't see any shark fins, so I don't think any crazy, weird Jaws tropes are going to occur. And I really like the font because it's embossed, so it's very hard to see, but R.L. Stine's name and the title are raised on the page, and it looks like it's made out of seafoam, so it's got like this really nice pebble texture to it. It's definitely cool. I'm excited for this story, so let's begin. What should I read next? I don't know. Send me an email, nightfallaudiobooks@gmail.com. I am also at home right here on YouTube at Nightfall Audiobooks. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that join button to show your support. Any help is greatly appreciated. I really, truly do mean that. I also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/nightfallaudiobooks. So tell your friends, tell your mom, tell whoever you think would like to listen to me tell them tales from R.L. Stine. Thank you very much for listening, and let's begin. Welcome to a Nightfall Audiobooks production of Beach Party by R.L. Stine, a point horror novel, Book 4. Chapter 1. Karen Mandel drove the way she did everything else in life, foot down, hard on the gas, full speed ahead, never look back. The gray morning haze was lifting, and a hot, white sun came burning through as Karen squealed around the curve, roared past a line of slow-moving cars and vans, and slipped her navy blue Mustang convertible into a narrow space in Lot C at LAX. Before climbing out of the car, she stopped to examine herself in a rearview mirror and straighten the blue sleeveless t-shirt she wore over white tennis shorts. I look okay, she thought. Not as pretty as Anne-Marie, but okay. Karen's oval face was framed by straight black hair that rested comfortably on her shoulders. She had dark skin that always looked tan, and shocking blue eyes. Shocking because they were so wide, so blue, and so unexpected. They were eyes that belonged on a fair-skinned blonde. On Karen's dark face beneath her black eyebrows, they looked so dramatic, so mysterious, it was impossible not to stare into them. She smoothed her hair, jumped out of the car, searching for some way to remember this parking spot, and hurried to meet Anne-Marie. "Good timing!" Karen cried. Anne-Marie was just coming out of the gate as Karen arrived. Dressed in hip-hugging designer jeans and a heavy brown sweater, she was carrying a large red canvas bag and a tennis racket. She dropped everything when she saw Karen, and the two friends rushed forward with beaming smiles to hug each other. "Putting on a little weight, aren't you?" Karen said, stepping back. It was a running joke. Anne-Marie was as thin as ever. She looked like a fashion model with her slight figure, her straight blonde hair cut fashionably short, her emerald eyes, her high cheekbones, and pale, creamy skin. "Don't mention weight," Anne-Marie groaned, picking up her bag, which appeared to weigh as much as she did. "They served the worst meal on the plane?" "What was it?" "I'm not sure. It was bright yellow, burning hot on the outside, and frozen solid on the inside." "Must have been lasagna," Karen said. "How did it taste?" Anne-Marie rolled her eyes. "Fabulous. I had to have seconds." They followed the signs to the baggage pickup. "I can't believe I'm here, Karen." They walked past a large window. "Oh, look, the sky is yellow from all the pollution. I guess I can believe I'm here." Karen looked at her watch. "You've been here 15 seconds, and you've already put down L.A." "That's a record for me," Anne-Marie said, shifting the red bag to her other hand and dropping the tennis racket. "I must be slowing down." Karen laughed. "I'm just so glad to see you." She flung an arm around Anne-Marie, forgetting the weight of the canvas bag, and nearly knocked her over. "Oops! Hey, what have you got in there? Presents for me, I hope." "Nope, I brought Sandy." She shook the bag and called into it. "Hold still in there, Sandy." Then she looked back at Karen. "He insisted on coming. He's madly in love with you, you know." How is your little brother? Karen asked, laughing. Compared to what? Anne-Marie joked. Compared to Freddy Krueger, he's okay, I guess. He's at that sarcastic age, you know. Everything you say to him, he's got a sarcastic remark. Oh, he'll grow out of it, Karen assured her. He will? I never did. They went down an escalator and followed the signs down another endless corridor. Suddenly, Anne-Marie stopped. Karen, what's that around your neck? This? Karen's hand went up to the crystal she wore on a chain. Oh no, I knew it, Anne-Marie wailed. Get me back on the plane. I can't stand it out here. That's a crystal, right? You do weird things with crystals, right? You think they have magic powers, and you talk to them, and... Stop. Come on, stop, Karen protested. I just wear it because it's pretty, Karen said, not meaning to sound quite so defensive. For sure, Anne-Marie said, like, gag me with a spoon. Anne-Marie, nobody says it anymore, not even Valley girls, Karen said, making a face. Actually, Mike gave me this crystal before I broke up with him. I know. The astrology counselor at school told you to break up with Mike, right? Hey, you really haven't outgrown your sarcastic phase, Karen said. Breaking up with Mike was a real bummer, you know? Anne-Marie apologized quickly, her cheeks coloring. Sorry, it always takes me a while to lose my New York edge. Really, I'm sorry. I just feel like such an alien out here, like I'm from Mars or something. No problem, Karen gave her a warm smile. I think you'll feel right at home in a little while. Wait till you see where we are staying. They stopped in front of the baggage conveyor belt. Anne-Marie dropped her bag to the floor and placed a tennis racket on top of it. Two small yellow cases were going round and round, looking very lonesome on the long winding belt. You mean we're not staying at your house? Anne-Marie asked. In Westwood Village? No way. Then where? It's a surprise. Karen gave her a mysterious smile. Say, how's your mom doing? Anne-Marie asked. Pretty good. It took her a while, after the divorce. I think she took it a lot more personally than Daddy. Divorce is pretty personal, Anne-Marie cracked. You know what I mean. Anyway, it took her a while to get going again. She was like a zombie for months. She'd sit around playing her old Beatles records and cry. That's too bad, but she's better now? Yeah, a little. I think she went out on a date last week. Some guy who sells real estate in the valley? And your dad? Karen shrugged. He's definitely weirded out. Huh? He's driving a red Corvette for one thing, and he's blow-drying his hair. Weird. Actually, I don't see him that much. Of course, I never did. He bought me a car, a Mustang convertible, do you believe it? Is that good? Anne-Marie asked, not being sarcastic. Yeah, it's what you might call an awesome car. You might. I wouldn't. I don't drive. You don't drive? You're 17 and you don't drive? Karen looked positively shocked. No, I take the subway usually. It's a lot faster. The subway? Don't you get mugged and killed if you take the subway? Not everyone, Anne-Marie said, staring past Karen, as more suitcases began to magically appear on the conveyor belt. About 15 minutes later, they were out in the hazy sunshine, looking for where Karen had parked the car. This is an awesome car, Anne-Marie said when they finally found it. I love the white leather seats. How do you keep them clean? Karen helped her load her suitcase and bag into the trunk. Daddy got me a new wetsuit and new skis, too, Karen said, sliding behind the wheel. The seat was hot against the back of her legs. He buys you a lot of presents, huh? Yeah, he's definitely trying to buy my love. And you know what? It's working. Both girls laughed as Karen backed out. It took a while, even for Karen, to get out of the vast airport. Then, Karen headed the car northwest along Lincoln Boulevard. The bright sun had burned away most of the haze, and the air was getting warmer. Where are we going? Anne-Marie asked. Karen shook her head mysteriously. You'll see. They squealed to a stop because of some construction up ahead. Hey, I've been doing all the talking. What's new with you? Did you have a good year? Anne-Marie looked away. Not really. Karen was more than a little surprised. Anne-Marie was flippant sarcastic, but she always had a lot of enthusiasm. How come? I don't know. It was sort of a wasted year, I guess. It's hard to explain. My high school is so big, and, well, everyone's so immature. And how's Clay? I meant to write. I broke up with Clay, or maybe he broke up with me, I'm not sure. Her normally pale face was bright crimson. Gee, I'm sorry. Me too, Anne-Marie said in a near whisper. Then she added wistfully, maybe it isn't all over. Everything was sort of up in the air when I left. Karen could see that Anne-Marie was really upset. She and Clay had been going together for 2 years. Karen wondered what had happened. She probably would never find out. Anne-Marie seldom liked talking about herself. The girls had been friends since about the age of 9, growing up as neighbors in Westwood Village. When they had started high school, the friendship had seen some hard times. In fact, Anne-Marie didn't speak to Karen for 6 months after Karen started to date a boy Anne-Marie was interested in. "You're always making me jealous of you," Anne-Marie had said one day during an angry exchange, and Karen had never forgotten it. It seemed such a sad, revealing thing to say. But then, Anne-Marie had moved with her family to New York, and the friendship was revived through letters. The anger, the jealousy, the hurt feelings seemed to dissolve over the miles. Now Anne-Marie was back in L.A. for the first time since she'd moved, and Karen was so happy to see her she thought she might burst. The traffic started moving again. "Good old Highway 1, Anne-Marie said, forcing a smile. "Yeah, it's great to be back." It was nearly an hour later when they pulled up to the low 3-story gray shingled apartment building. "Here we are," Karen said, squeezing the Mustang into a narrow parking space. "What do you think?" "Speedway?" Anne-Marie asked, reading the street sign. "Where are we?" "Venice." Karen started to roll the top up. "Venice? You mean the place with all the weirdos and the roller skaters?" Karen grinned. "Wait till you see the apartment." "Whose apartment?" "Ours. Well, actually, my dad's." Karen locked up the car and walked around to open the trunk. "Your dad has an apartment in Venice?" "I told you he's weirded out. He's even rented this apartment right across from the beach. He's having a second adolescence, I guess. I think he wants to bring back the 60s. I mean, he's got psychedelic posters on the walls, and you should see his girlfriend." "Girlfriend?" Anne-Marie looked positively appalled. "Yeah, she looks almost old enough to be my younger sister." "Wow," Karen laughed. "You're not from California anymore, Anne-Marie. You're not allowed to say wow." "Wow? Is your dad's girlfriend staying with us too?" "No, they're both gone. They went to some spa in the Springs. The apartment is all ours until the weekend. Daddy won't be back until late on Saturday. Isn't this great? Our own apartment right across from the beach?" Karen helped Anne-Marie lug her suitcase out of the trunk. Anne-Marie looked up uncertainly at the low, gray building, which looked more like a motel than an apartment house. "Your mom was always so strict," Anne-Marie said, carrying her bag and following Karen up the steps. "I can't believe she's letting us stay here on our own, even for a few days." "She doesn't know," Karen said, her blue eyes glowing. "Huh? She thinks Daddy is here with us. I didn't tell her he was going away. It's our little secret." "But, Karen," Anne-Marie hung back, "do you really think this is such a good idea?" Karen unlocked the door and pushed it open. She tossed Anne-Marie's bag in, then stood back to let her friend inside the apartment first. "Of course it is," Karen said, with a mischievous smile. "What could happen?" Chapter 2. "The beach is so beautiful at night," Karen said, kicking off her sandals and stepping into the cool sand. It's not very crowded," Anne-Marie said, looking around warily. "People don't know what they're missing," Karen said, ignoring her friend's reluctance. "Come on, what's there to be afraid of? When's the last time you smelled the Pacific?" 2 years, I guess," Anne-Marie said, stepping off the boardwalk and following her friend onto the beach. "Hey, wait up. Do you always have to walk so fast?" "You're the New Yorker," Karen called back, not slowing her stride. "You're supposed to be used to a fast pace." "No one could get used to you," Anne-Marie said, jogging to catch up. She heard a noise behind her and turned to see 2 boys in t-shirts and black spandex bicycle shorts roller skating at full speed down the boardwalk. "Aren't they cold?" she asked Karen, shivering. The air grew cooler as they approached the water. The wet sand felt clammy under her bare feet. "It's a little chilly," Karen admitted, "but who cares? Here we are, Anne-Marie. It's summer and you're back and we're on the beach and we're going to have nonstop fun for the next month." "When does the nonstop fun begin?" Anne-Marie grumbled. "Come on, just look around," Karen enthused, refusing to acknowledge her friend's sarcasm. Anne-Marie had to admit that it was a beautiful night. The sun had just fallen and the sky was pale evening purple, with tiny white dots of stars beginning to pop out and sparkle. The steady rhythmic rush of the low waves splashing lightly on the smooth shore drowned out all other sounds. Against the darkening sky, the water was as blue as an afternoon sky. It sparkled and shone, as if holding the sunlight, refusing to allow the light to slip away. "Pretty," Anne-Marie said, smiling at Karen. They walked silently along the shore. The water seemed to grow darker with every step they took. Anne-Marie shivered and wrapped her arms around herself. She was wearing cut-offs and a light wool poncho, but the cold ocean air made her wish she'd worn something heavier. She couldn't believe Karen, who was wearing short shorts and a t-shirt and didn't seem the least bit cold. "Wow, I feel a long way from home," she said quietly. "Anne-Marie, you lived here in L.A. most of your life," Karen reminded her, bending down to pick up a shell, then quickly tossing it into the water. "But I guess 2 years is a long time. It all seems so different." She turned and looked back at the boardwalk, also known as Oceanfront Walk, which was dark and nearly deserted. The shops had all closed before sunset. The summer season, with its influx of tourists and young people and crazies from all over, hadn't really begun. The Venice Pavilion across from Market Street stood dark and deserted, a low concrete bunker covered with graffiti. Karen dug her feet deep into the wet sand. "Oh, that feels so good. I love it," she shouted happily. She lifted her face toward the water to better feel the cold spray. "It's really good for your skin," she told Anne-Marie. "Too salty," her friend grumbled. "Listen, I'm freezing to death. Could we go back and get changed?" "Yeah, I guess." Karen couldn't hide her disappointment that Anne-Marie wasn't being more adventurous, more enthusiastic. "Where is everyone anyway?" Anne-Marie asked, pulling her light poncho tighter around her shoulders. "Main Street mostly. That's where everyone in Venice goes at night." "Aren't there parties on the beach or anything?" "No. Most people are kind of afraid," Karen admitted reluctantly. "Afraid? Of what? Afraid of the dark?" "Oh, you know, gangs, I guess." "Oh?" Karen began jogging toward the boardwalk, her bare feet slapping the wet sand. Anne-Marie followed close behind. "Hey, where did we leave our shoes?" "Up this way, I think," Karen called back to her. "Just past the pavilion." It was very dark now. The purples and grays of the night sky had darkened to black, broken only by tiny pinpoints of white starlight. The ocean behind them was even darker than the sky. They located their sandals and were slipping them onto their wet, sandy feet when the 5 boys appeared, 5 tall shadows that seemed to materialize like dark, grinning ghosts. They wore denim and leather, angry-looking t-shirts with the names of heavy metal groups emblazoned across the fronts, visible even in the dim light. Their hair was short and spiked or scraggly down to their shoulders. A couple of them had diamond studs on one ear. They all wore the same amused expression. "They're trying so hard to look dangerous," Karen thought. The 5 of them shuffled closer, sneakers scraping against the asphalt of the boardwalk, their hands in their jeans pockets or jammed into the pockets of their open jackets. Karen was the first to speak. "Hey, how's it going?" This seemed to strike some of them funny. They laughed, short, high-pitched laughter. "Real fine," one of them said. He was tall and lanky, with short blonde hair spiked straight up. His smile revealed 2 deep dimples on his narrow cheeks. He's kind of cute, Karen thought. He raised his hand to scratch his jaw, and Karen could make out a tattoo of an 8-ball on the back of his wrist. Karen thought she recognized him from school. His name was Vince something or other. He had bumped into her once in the hallway, causing her to drop all her books. When he'd stooped to help her pick them up, he'd seemed very embarrassed. She remembered he hadn't said a word. "How are you doing?" one of Vince's friends, a tall, dark-haired boy with a serious skin problem, asked, leering at the 2 girls. He took a deep drag from the cigarette between his lips, then tossed it onto the asphalt, and stamped it out beneath the toe of his black boot. "We were just leaving," Anne-Marie said, pulling Karen's arm. "Hey, it's early," one of the boys said, moving to block their way. "Yeah, we just got here," the dark-haired one said, staring hard at Anne-Marie. Karen glanced at Vince, who hadn't said anything. He was standing back, a few feet from his buddies, his face expressionless. "You guys better not go for a swim," Karen said. "You forgot your rubber ducky inner tubes." They all laughed, sarcastic, phony laughs, everyone except Vince, who stood frozen, watching silently. "We heard there was going to be a party," the dark-haired one said, looking Anne-Marie up and down. "Isn't that right, Vince?" Vince shrugged in reply. "Yeah, a beach party," one of the others said, nervously fiddling with the zipper of his denim jacket. "Have fun, guys," Karen said, starting to walk past them. "Hey, you're invited." "Yeah, in fact, you're the party," the tall one said, his voice filled with menace. Karen caught Vince's eye. He quickly looked away. He swept a large hand back through his close-cropped hair, his face twisting in a frown. He looks a little like Sting, Karen thought. "Isn't it past your bedtime, boys?" Karen asked. "You don't want your mommies to worry about you, do you?" "You can tuck me in any time," one of them said. They all laughed and slapped each other high fives. This time, Vince got into the act too. "Come on, let's go," Anne-Marie whispered to Karen. Karen nodded and tried to step past 2 of them, who looked enough alike to be twin brothers, but they moved to block her path. "Which one do you want, Vince?" one of the twins called. "He wants you," Karen cracked to the twin who had asked the question. "I like the one with the mouth," Vince said softly. "Which one do you like?" Karen asked Anne-Marie loudly, ignoring Vince. I just want to go," Anne-Marie said, looking very scared. "I like the one with the brain," Karen said. "Which one of you is using the brain tonight?" This time, no one laughed. "Hey, we're not bad guys," Vince said, staring into Karen's eyes. He took a couple of steps toward her, his hands in his jacket pockets. "Not bad compared to what?" Karen snapped. He didn't smile. His dark eyes burned into hers. The 5 boys formed a loose circle around Karen and Anne-Marie. "Are you going to let us go?" Karen demanded. No one replied. Anne-Marie gripped Karen's arm. Her hand was freezing cold. The circle tightened as the silent boys moved in on them. Chapter 3. "Hey, what's going on?" "Whoa." The circle opened wide as Vince and his buddies turned to see who was calling out to them. 2 boys stood on the boardwalk, one carrying a skateboard. The other one, tall and powerfully built, wearing jeans and a dark-hooded sweatshirt, stepped forward, taking long, confident strides. "Hey, you girls, I've been looking all over for you," he said, ignoring the 5 startled-looking boys. "Huh?" Karen stared at the boy as he approached. "I've never seen him before in my life," she thought. "Yeah, we thought you were going to wait with the others," the boy said in a hoarse, scratchy voice. He was wearing a white windbreaker, which flapped noisily in the wind. "Sorry," Karen said, catching on quickly. "We were looking for you." She glanced at Anne-Marie to make sure her friend understood what was happening. Anne-Marie looked frightened and totally confused. The wind off the ocean had blown her short blonde hair straight back. She looked like a little girl, a frightened little girl. "Hey, come on, we're late," the tall boy said impatiently. He grabbed Karen's hand and began to pull her away. "You coming or not?" Vince and his friends had watched this scene in startled silence, but now Vince moved quickly to block their way. "Hold it right there, buddy," he said in a low, menacing growl. "My name's Jerry, not Buddy." Vince smiled for some reason, a thin, slow smile that revealed the deep dimples in his cheeks. "Well, Jerry," he said slowly, "where are you going with our girlfriends?" Vince's buddies all laughed at this and closed ranks behind the 2 girls. "We're caught in the middle," Karen thought. "This could get pretty ugly." "Girlfriends." Jerry looked Vince up and down. His friend moved quickly to his side. "Hold on a minute, man," Jerry said. "You're talking about my sister." He motioned to Karen. Vince sneered. "She's your sister?" "We do look a little alike," Karen thought, looking closely at Jerry. He had straight, dark hair like hers, and light eyes, and a perfect, straight nose. Vince took a step back. Karen took that as a good sign. Jerry is bigger than Vince, she realized. Jerry probably works out. He has such powerful-looking arms, such a broad chest. His friend looked as if he was in pretty good shape, too. "If she's your sister, I don't want her," Vince cracked, holding up his hands as if surrendering and stepping back onto the sand. "Yeah, she's contaminated," one of Vince's buddies shouted. "Don't touch her, Vince. You don't know where she's been." They all laughed, except for Vince, who seemed to be thinking hard. "He's backing down," Karen thought. "He's going to let us go." To her surprise, she felt a little disappointed. Not disappointed that a fight had been avoided, but disappointed that she had to leave Vince. She realized that she was attracted to him, the way she was always attracted to danger, to excitement, the way she often was driven to pursue things she knew might not be good for her. Vince was staring into Karen's eyes. "We didn't mean any harm," he said to her quietly. "Just messing around." He gave Jerry a threatening look, then turned quickly and motioned for his friends to follow him. They walked off down the boardwalk quickly, laughing about something, slapping each other on the shoulders. "That was close," Anne-Marie said, sighing. She looked pale in the dim light, but very relieved. "Where'd you come from, anyway?" Karen asked Jerry. "Marty left his skateboard over by the rec center this afternoon. We went back to look for it and saw you and your friends." "They weren't exactly friends," Anne-Marie said, looking down the dark boardwalk as if expecting Vince and his friends to return. Black eyes and round puffs of cheeks. He looks like a squirrel, Karen thought. A fat little squirrel storing up nuts for the winter. Jerry, on the other hand, was a great-looking guy. A little too straight, too preppy for her taste maybe, but she might be able to make an exception this time, especially since he had rescued her from those tough guys. "It's kind of cold, don't you think?" Anne-Marie said, looking toward the houses across from the beach. "Yeah, let's get warmed up," Jerry said, rubbing his hands together. He looked at Karen. "You two have plans?" "No," Karen answered quickly. "We were just going for a walk and—" "Well, do you know Ray J's on Main Street? A bunch of us sort of hang out there. It's not a bad place." "We've got to get changed first," Anne-Marie said. "Yeah, right," Karen agreed. "We'll meet you there. Ray J's. I think I know where it is. On Main Street, near Park?" "Don't meet us. We'll walk you home and wait for you," Jerry said, giving her a warm smile. "Okay, sounds good," Karen said, returning his smile. "And it'll be our treat, since you were so brave." "Well, you're pretty brave to be seen with us," Marty said in his hoarse, scratchy voice, and then laughed as if he made a truly hilarious joke. Ray J's was a small, bustling coffee shop and pizza restaurant in the basement of a 2-story house on Main Street between Park and Brooks. Karen found a parking place a few doors past the restaurant, parked the Mustang, and cut the engine. "It's only a few blocks from the apartment," Anne-Marie protested. "We could have walked." Marty looked at her curiously from his position beside her in the back seat. "Walk? What's that? You're not from around here, are you?" "Some people out here don't walk to the bathroom," Karen joked. They climbed out of the car and looked up and down Main Street, which was crowded with people window shopping, on their way to dinner, or to the many clubs and bars that line the narrow street. "Looks like Greenwich Village," Anne-Marie said, "only everyone looks a lot healthier." "Don't let looks fool you," Karen said. She hopped down the concrete stairs to the open entrance of Ray J's, the others following behind. The restaurant was a long, low rectangle with 2 rows of red vinyl booths going straight back to a mirrored back wall. A rainbow-colored jukebox beside the bar against the near wall was playing a Willie Nelson record. 2 waitresses scurried back and forth down the wide aisle. They wore long, red aprons over black t-shirts and red short shorts, and little red plastic baseball caps with Ray J's in black on the front. The restaurant was smoky and hot, filled, for the most part, with loud, laughing young people. Karen spotted an empty booth about halfway to the back. She started to lead Anne-Marie and the 2 boys to it when they were stopped by an angry-looking girl in tight-fitting black slacks and a pale green Esprit sweater. "Where have you been?" she asked Jerry, pushing past Karen. "Oh, hi, Renee." Jerry looked at Karen, embarrassed. Renee was about a foot shorter than Jerry. She had a pretty oval face with big dark brown eyes, and piles of frizzy brown hair that she swept straight back, and kept in place with a long pearl-white hairband. "Where were you?" she repeated. She had a high-pitched voice. Karen thought she sounded like a little mouse. "Stephanie, I've been waiting forever." "Well..." Jerry's face grew bright crimson. He gestured to Karen and Anne-Marie. Renee looked at them suspiciously. "Hi," she said, and quickly turned back to Jerry. "We met Karen and Anne-Marie," Jerry said. "They were having trouble, and..." "They rescued us," Karen interrupted, jumping right in to help Jerry, who seemed to be very flustered. "Rescued you from what? From boredom?" Renee snapped. "I don't think I like her," Karen thought. "These boys were giving us a hard time on the beach," Anne-Marie stepped in. "Jerry and Marty got rid of them for us." A girl with long blonde hair was waving frantically at them from the first booth near the bar. "Hi, Stephanie." Marty waved back. "Come on," Jerry said, putting an arm around Renee's shoulders. "We can all squeeze into the booth. Then we'll tell you the whole story." "It sounds fascinating," Renee said dryly, but she allowed Jerry to guide her to the booth. Marty quickly squeezed in next to Stephanie, and Renee and Jerry slid in on the other side. Karen and Anne-Marie were left to sit uncomfortably on the outside edge. "Don't they have any bigger booths?" Karen complained. "Guys only usually bring one date," Renee said pointedly, glaring at Jerry. "This isn't a date," Karen said quickly. "Jerry said a whole bunch of kids hang out here, and..." "Is that what Jerry said?" Renee snapped, her little mouse voice rising. Karen glanced at Anne-Marie. She wondered if her friend felt as uncomfortable as she did. Jerry could have at least told us that he and Marty already had dates, she thought. From the looks of things, Jerry and Renee and Marty and Stephanie had been couples for quite a while. "This is my treat," Karen announced, trying to remove some of the tension from around the table. "I promised I'd treat since Jerry and Marty were so brave." "Them?" Both Renee and Stephanie cried in unison. Everyone laughed. Karen realized that Jerry was staring at her. He had the nicest smile on his face. He looks a little like Tom Cruise, Karen decided. She returned his smile, but cut it short when she saw that Renee was watching. "We already had dinner," Renee said. "Me too, but I'm still hungry," Marty said, his arm carelessly around Stephanie's shoulder. "I'm starving," Karen said, ignoring the dirty looks she was getting from Renee. "How's the pizza here?" "It's round," Renee said helpfully. "Sounds good," Karen said. "Let's get a pizza." "I just want an iced coffee or something," Renee said unhappily. Jerry continued to smile at Karen. She began to worry that his face was frozen in that position. When he and Marty got up and went to the back of the restaurant to talk to some guys they knew, Karen actually felt a little relieved. The 4 girls talked, awkwardly at first, but then more comfortably. Stephanie had a cousin who lived in New Jersey but worked in Manhattan, so she and Anne-Marie found something to talk about. Renee and Karen talked about what a weird place Venice was. Then Renee bragged about her parents' house in Bel Air, and about all of the celebrities she met because her dad was in the business. Karen was grateful when the pizza finally arrived. It meant she could concentrate on eating instead of talking. The boys returned when they saw the pizza. Karen drifted in and out of the conversation. Her mind wandered back a few hours. Back to the deserted boardwalk, she found herself thinking about Vince, about how he tried to look so tough but how those deep dimples of his betrayed him. She tried to recreate the scared feeling she had had back on the dark beach, the creeping feeling of terror when the boys circled them and started to move in, like vultures to their prey. It was scary but thrilling at the same time. How far would those boys have gone, she wondered. What would have happened if Jerry and Marty hadn't happened by? The best beach parties at Malibu, Jerry was saying when Karen's attention drifted back to the table. She looked up and realized that he was talking to her. You'll have to come sometime, he said. You too, he added quickly, looking across the booth at Anne-Marie. Sounds like fun, Anne-Marie said, wiping pizza sauce off her chin with a napkin. Where is this party beach? It's a secret, Jerry told her. We slide down these cliffs and onto the beach. It's really great, especially at night. Malibu is so beautiful, Anne-Marie said. It's pretentious, Renee said, sighing. She didn't bother to amplify her opinion. Maybe we'll all go Friday night, Jerry said, doubling his enthusiasm in an attempt to cover for Renee's definite lack of it. Maybe, Karen said, grabbing another slice of pizza off the tray. The rest of the evening went by quickly and pleasantly. Even Renee seemed to pick up and get into a better mood. It was nearly midnight when they decided to call it a night. I can drive everyone, Karen offered, stifling a yawn. No, I have my car, Renee said, waving a set of BMW keys under Karen's nose. As they slid out of the booth, Jerry leaned forward and whispered into Karen's ear, You have great eyes. She smiled and started to thank him for the compliment, but stopped when she saw Renee watching them from the restaurant doorway. So does Renee, Karen said pointedly. Jerry blushed and hurried back to Renee. As they stepped out of the restaurant into a surprisingly cool evening for June, the street was still filled with people. On a corner, an old man wearing a Dodgers cap over sunglasses was seated on an overturned trash can, playing a funky blues tune on a harmonica. Several couples were clustered outside an after-hours club across the street. Car horns honked. The street was still filled with traffic. Karen had to pay the cashier, so she was the last one out of the restaurant. As she stepped up onto the sidewalk, she was surprised to find Renee waiting for her, the others having gone ahead. It's busier now than it was at 8, Karen said, looking down the street. Listen, Karen. Renee grabbed Karen's arm. Her hand was cold. Her fingers tightened around Karen's wrist until Karen felt like crying out. Stay away from Jerry, Renee said, in a flat, low tone, pressing her face close to Karen's. So close, Karen could feel Renee's breath on the side of her face. I really mean it. Stay away from Jerry. Then Renee let go and hurried to join the others.